My name is Lorna, for those of you who may not know me, and this is Manisha, and it's really fun to be here with you this morning. Thanks for coming. This topic. I don't do service that often, but it's often this time of year when a lot of our friends and fellow Guru Bhais and people from our Sangha here are down at Spiritual Renewal Week at the village, which is what's happening right now. It's the week of spiritual renewal is winding up, and that's why some of these seats are empty. But this topic is really fun. I enjoy it. Who remembers the first law of motion that Newton expressed? Think back to your high school physics. First law of motion is that everything keeps doing what it's doing, basically. That's a paraphrase. I don't think Sir Isaac said it that way. But he said an object that sits still will continue to sit still, and an object that's in motion will continue to move, unless there's a counter force, unless there's another force that's introduced that is out of balance. Otherwise, everything stays in balance. So there needs to be a stronger force to either get something to move or change direction or get something to stop. And the other thing that Yogananda told us is all of the physical laws, all of the laws that we continue to discover about how this universe works are really just a reflection of spiritual laws, because it all comes from one thing. It's all one thing going on here. It all comes from one source. And so it manifests, the truth manifests on all these different levels. So what happened, so we're told, is that God beyond creation, in stillness, created movement and sent this wave, sent the movement out to create all that is. That movement is still moving. It's still moving outward, away from that center. And everything is going away, and it's going to continue to go until there's a counter force that turns us around the other way. There's a tug of war happening. God put out that movement, put out that motion in creation, and is drawing everything back into itself. But the reason that we're still here is because of that counter force. There's a movement going outward that we're a part of, and it's all in balance until at some time that changes and we actually turn, and there's enough power and there's enough energy to actually move us in the other way, to take us back. In the Festival of Light, there's a story that we'll hear in a little bit. We'll do that as part of our service here, of a little bird that is sent forth from creation out and is told, go forth and multiply and grow and change and, evolve and do these wonderful things. And the little bird gets lost. The little bird starts thinking that that power of flight and everything that it experiences actually belongs to it. The words are, I wrote them down in case I forget when I'm standing up here. It says, instead, alas, we abandoned our mission. Instead, we hoarded selfishly, which means we held everything to ourselves. The little bird holds on to everything and thinks, what else is wisdom, if not to keep what is mine for myself? And so it says, we, like that bird, entered upon the second stage of the soul's long journey, the stage which is called the revolt. Because we are sent out, God created us in this amazing power of love and went out. And then we bought into the idea that it's ours. It belongs to us, and everything we do and everything we think. In the reading, that one line is amazing. What was that one line? That even that we want to tap into the positive currents, Oh, wait a minute. Where is it, Jim? Sorry. I need that last line. The last line. Almost the last line. It says, we want to avoid attracting the negative, which, disease that it is, can infect our thoughts, even while it leads us to believe that our thoughts are purely our own. Think about that for a minute. Of course our thoughts are our own. That's what the ego says. Our thoughts are our own. But this force that is pulling us outward, the satanic force, that force that pulls us away from God, has actually convinced us that our thoughts are purely our own. It's convinced us that everything we do and think, all of the things that we try to be and all are our own, and that it's our journey and our show, and it all belongs to us. We hoard it selfishly. And that's the force that's so insidious, that's so subtle, and that is what keeps us out here in delusion. But then in the festival, and I love it, the master says, Yogananda actually says, temptation is charming, otherwise no one would be interested. He said, it's charming. And so, it's charming to keep going in that direction. And then in the festival, it says, the bird gets afraid, the bird gets lost, they finally listens to the voice that says, your strength to fly has never been your own. You have to look to the source of that power. And the little bird says, where's the source? And they said, look within. Go within. Seek it in the farthest depths of being. And then the bird enters the third stage of the journey, which is called the quest. The quest is where we are. The quest is what happens. The quest is where we begin to swim and try to find those other currents of consciousness. We try to go upstream. We try to turn around and go back to the source. And that's when we start the battle against that force that's pulling us outward and the love that's trying to draw us back. And God is just waiting for us to turn around and try to come back. But as Yogananda explains, he has to wait. That's the way he set up the game. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. But that's the way the game is set up. That's the way. I put out this force. It's going. It's creating. It's becoming. It's moving. It's creating this delusion of duality, of things happening. And now you have to tune in and figure out what's going on. And you have to come back. And in order to come back, we have to start tuning in, and we have to realize that we have to put out the effort because that force is so strong. We have no idea. The masters tell us that all our spiritual efforts count. Everything counts. Nothing is wasted. But we really don't know. We really, I think, would be just scared to death if we understood how much energy it's going to take us to actually counteract and overcome that force that's moving outward and actually create a strong enough force, strong enough energy to tune in to that string, that current that will bring us back to God. There's a Pilgrim's Vow, a Nayaswami order that Swami Kriyananda created to offer to the world as a way of people who want to get into that current, who want to choose that current of light and move in that direction, to take a vow, to do it in an outward way as well as an inward way. And so he created the Nayaswami order. And there are different levels of commitment and vows to take, but it's a way of consciously choosing that current that you want to join forces with. And there's a vow that I took called the Pilgrim Vow. And I remember, this was quite a few years ago, I remember reading the vow and studying it before we actually did the ceremony and looking at it and trying to, understand what it was I was going to do and what this vow meant. And I was puzzled because I'll just read you part of it. One of the lines says, "I will offer up all material desires for purification in the fire of divine bliss." We do a purification here every morning, every Sunday morning, where we offer ourselves up. So I thought, okay, I offer up all material desires. Then the next line is, "I'll offer up all attachments for purification in that cosmic fire." Everything I'm holding on to, first everything I want, and then everything I've already got and I'm holding on to. Okay, I'm going to offer that all up. And then the next line is, "I'll search my heart daily for any lingering desires and attachments, and will offer them to thee." And I seriously, I have to confess, I looked at that and I thought, but we just said that. We just did that. I offer all material desires. It says all. I offer all attachments. Isn't it repetitive to go back and say, I'll search daily and I'll find other ones, when I already said I offered it all? It was truly puzzling to me. And then I remembered something that happened. I live in the Ananda community here, an apartment complex of 50 different apartments. And I was helping a friend move from one apartment to another. And she had a pretty big apartment. She was moving to a littler apartment, and it was a pretty overwhelming job, and she couldn't do it all herself. And so I helped sort of organize more help and get more people in, and we all help each other. And we went in there, and we cleaned and we scrubbed and we boxed up things, and we took stuff out and we hauled it across the community area to the other apartment. And I was in the kitchen, I remember, and there must have been a dozen people in the kitchen. And we pulled the stove away from the wall and cleaned all the cruddies under there, and we took apart the refrigerator, and we wiped out all the cupboards. And I mean, it was a massive effort, and we were doing all this so she could, get her security deposit back and everything, and make it all clean and sparkling for the next person who was going to come in. And I went through, after everybody else was done and we moved everything, I told her I'd double check everything, and I went in and I made sure the windowsills were clean. I wiped down the closet rods. I went and cleaned out the fireplace and took all the ashes out and everything. It was beautiful. And we were done. It was gorgeous. I told David, who was the manager at the time, we're all done. She's all out of there. I mean, there was also a deadline, of course, when we had to do this all by. 24 hours later, a day later, I get a call from David saying, "Lorna, what do you want to do with the pots and pans?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "There's a whole cupboard full of pots and pans still in the apartment. Did you mean to leave them there?" I said, "No, it's not possible. It's just not possible. There were people and things, and I checked everything, and I went I said, "No, you're a mistake. There can't be." And I went over to the apartment and opened up the biggest cupboard there was in the kitchen, and it was full of pots and pans and things. It was and then I remembered this vow. I said, oh, Swami knew what he was doing when he wrote these vows. We have such good intentions. We try so hard. I offer it all, Lord. I offer it all. In the purification, we say, Master says, "Open your heart to me and I'll enter." Yes, Master, come and enter. And there's little cupboards in there. Little cupboards that have stuff in there that we just have no idea that eons. The other thing it says in the festival is that the little bird's day that it describes in the festival is eons of our time. That he just slipped that in there so that just this one little word, eons of our time. It's just mind-boggling how many times we've been and how long we've been trying to do this over and over and over, and we're trying, and we're making progress. Yes, we're making progress. We're here, we're almost there, but there's a lot of vrittis, there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to get rid of. There's a lot of little cupboards in our heart that we just ignore for a while, and we just keep shut for a while because we don't want to have to deal with it. And so this energy of this force that is drawing us constantly, that is tempting and enticing and taking us and telling us just a little bit more, is very, very strong. It's very, very strong, and we have to take it seriously. That's why he put this in the readings, is that we can't ignore it and pretend that it's not there, because it is such a huge part of what we're doing every single day. There's there's a wonderful song that we're going to be doing after I finish my thing up here. When I'm done talking, we'll do this song that's wonderful called The Temptation of Christ, which is from Swami Kriyananda's oratorio that he did of the life of Christ. And it's wonderful. We do the whole oratorio around Easter time, so be sure to come back. And so in the Temptation of Christ, there's this line, Satan speaks, and he starts out by saying, "Behold all the wonders God's grace can bestow." First of all, that's pretty sneaky. This is supposed to be the satanic force talking to us, telling us God's grace, okay? God's grace, if you but reclaim what you've given. He's speaking to Jesus. If you but reclaim what you've given. It's a very interesting line. What he's saying is Jesus already gave it all up. He gave everything. He opened up all those little cupboards in his heart. He went through it all. He had everything that we have. He went through everything that we are going through and will go through. That's what the masters do, is they do it all, and they show us how to do it. He did it all. He had those little closed places in his heart. He had those battles. He had that force tempting him. He went through it all, and he gave it all. He went back. He kept going back until everything was gone. Everything was given. And Satan is standing there saying, all you have to do is take it back. All you have to do is reclaim that, and then you can have everything that I can give you. The world, the glory, he goes on to say, worship me to satisfy all human needs. Dominion now over all this noble earth. All you have to do is worship me. Now, Master Yogananda and the saints tell us worship means put our attention to, give our energy and our love and time and effort into. That's worshiping. And so Satan is saying, just all you have to do is give back everything you've given to God, reclaim it as your own, take it back, and just focus on me, and you'll have the world. And it's true. It's not a lie. It's true. You'll have the world. You'll have everything the human heart desires, all those little desires. You just go with that. Just go with that. It's so easy. Just go with that, and you'll have what it is that you think you're looking for. But Jesus is there to say, he says, get behind me, Satan. Which means, it's a good visual for me, is there's this current of energy pulling, and you can either go with it, or you can turn away from it. Turn into the current. Turn into the divine current that's going to take you home to true freedom. And so he says, get behind me, because I'm going this way. You can keep moving. You're a force that's going to keep going, but I'm going to turn and leave you behind, and I'm going to go into the divine current. And then it goes on to say, at one point we sing about Jesus, for he taught them in freedom, wanting naught in return. All he offered was perfect peace, perfect freedom of soul. That's what we want. That's what we're trying to do. That's the current that we want to try to swim in and get to. And that will, with our will, it's there, the current's there all the time. God is loving us and drawing us back in, but he's given us this free will. He's given us the choice to either just go with it for as long as we want to, and then when we make that decision to turn and go with that current and go with divine love and put our energy into that, then he'll help us. He'll pull us along. Master said it's 25% our effort. But without that 25%, then Satan just carries us along, and we just keep going out and out and out, and can do that for a really long time. There's a, the affirmation today. Jim asked me, we were upstairs preparing for service, and the affirmation is on generosity. And it doesn't make sense at first, like generosity, because we know that Swami Kriyananda, who wrote the readings and all, he paired them up for a reason. There was a plan. We don't just pull one out of one book and pull one out of the other book. So the reading affirmation was on generosity. And it explained in that it means more than just generosity of material things. It means generosity of spirit. And when you think about it that way, too, what's the opposite of hoarding selfishly? What's the opposite of holding on to things and saying, it's mine? My sister, when she was little, I have a little sister, when she was little, about 2 or 3, and sitting at the table, she used to put her arms around all her food in her cup and everything and say, all mine, mine, mine. She had 3 siblings, so I think she was battling for. But we try to hold on and say, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And the antidote for that is to do the opposite, is to be generous, is to give. And when we practice generosity and we give to each other our material things, we tithe, a wonderful lesson in generosity, tithing part of our income to go back to our source of inspiration to say, it's not all mine. It's not mine. It's yours, God. It's yours. Even if it hurts a little, even if it's hard, the little bird is still, and there's part of us that's still the little bird in revolt. But we want to affirm and say, it's not mine. And then we practice. We give to each other. We give, credit to others. We continue to let go. And we come to purification and we say, I offer all, please come in, open up. And then we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again, until all those little cupboards in our heart are empty, and there's no more things that we're holding on to that says, it's mine. And then what happens? We just are filled. We're filled with God. We're filled with light. We're filled with spirit. I had the privilege of helping lead a retreat recently, and the theme was light. We talked about being light, and we did affirmations on light, and we read a lot of quotations from Master about light, and we really tried to understand and get to a new level of understanding that we are that light, that we're not just bathing in that light and asking that light to enter us, but we are actually that light itself, because we are a part of all that is. And I went through and found a lot of words. When reading about Satan and reading about what Yogananda said about darkness and Satan and that other energy that is pulling us outward, there's a lot of interesting words too. He describes as tempting and inviting, deceiving and deluding. In the Bhagavad Gita, they said, sinful and strong, mighty of appetite. It's subtle, it's charming, it's poisonous. Master described it as poison honey. And he says, he argues with Divine Mother, why would you give us poison honey? And he says it's poisonous. And then, like I said, for this retreat on light, I went through and I read all of these different quotations and references to light. We have our Festival of Light. We talk a lot about light here because it's so important to tune into that light. And realized how many different ways Yogananda described the light. So I want to end with this idea that this reassurance that as strong as that satanic force, as that delusion is that pulls us in the way that we really don't want to go, but it's so hard to fight. There's also this loving, conscious force that's pulling us back in, that's bringing us home. These are the words he had to describe light. Why don't you close your eyes for a moment and just go with this. A long list. These are all from Master's writings, describing the light, channeling, receiving, sharing, expanding, bathing, immersing, surrounding, blessing, igniting, filling, awakening, purifying, permeating, living, protecting, clarifying, revealing, healing, transforming, flowing, embracing, enfolding. The light is conscious, and the light is there all the time. And if we turn and try to tune into that, be a part of that, that's what we're filled with. O all-pervading Spirit, the breeze of thy inspiration has removed every cloud from my heart. The firmament of my mind is now clear. Purified, I behold only thee everywhere. The sunshine of thy joy spreads rapidly to the farthest shores of my being. After long ages of hunger, I feed on thy light. By thy grace and by my constant wakefulness in thee, may this joy be mine forever, forever, and forever. Om. Amen. And now we'll sing the song for you.